Hello all YouTubers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into this weather presentation for May 26, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe because sadly, tons of my watch time has been coming from unsubscribed viewers. We are on our way to our next goal of 600 subscribers, and thank you guys so much, by the way, for 500 subscribers. Let's get to our next goal of 600 subscribers, alright? So please do subscribe, and also, this applies to every single one of you. Please watch the whole video as well as liking and sharing the video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about a tropical disturbance, another one that can potentially form near Florida. So as you may or may not recall, last time I did a video on potential tropical storm Amanda on the Pacific side of things, in the Eastern Pacific. So please consider checking that out right there in the top right corner of your screen if you haven't already after this video. Now, again, today we're going to be on the Atlantic side of things. We'll be on the Atlantic Ocean and talking about a tropical disturbance potentially forming off the coast of Florida. And even if it doesn't, well, it could bring potentially dangerous flood threats through the southeast and possibly the mid-Atlantic, and where it's already produced some heavy rainfall and flooding. So let's get right into it here. So National Hurricane Center giving this thing a 20% chance of development in the next 2 and 5 days. So chances are if this thing is going to form, it's going to form within 2 days as opposed to 5. But showers and thunderstorms are located over extreme northeastern Florida, over the adjacent waters of the Atlantic and the northwestern Bahamas. But it's an elongated trough. Okay, it's not very organized. It's interacting with the upper level disturbance. Satellite data hasn't picked up a weak surface low near Orlando, Florida, or actually the center. Well, you guys might see it like this: the center of that low pressure system. But the National Hurricane Center and the little development is going to be expected here. There will be some land interaction. I think the strong upper level winds won't be quite as big of a threat. The dry air won't be much of a threat either, but they are saying the dry air could keep this thing from developing. But wind shear will probably be a problem also because it doesn't have much room left to form. I mean, it's got this little area. I mean, if it was tracking this way like Arthur did, it'd have a better chance. It's got a lot more ocean, but pretty soon it's gonna be coming onto the coast of Georgia and South Carolina anyway. But there will be a heavy rain threat and even a little bit of a wind threat regardless. All right. The broad it is going to be a broad disturbance, and it will move northward today into Wednesday, and probably remaining inland on the coast of northern Florida and Georgia. So it might even stay on the coast the entire time, depends on that chart. But like I said, like the National Hurricane Center says, gusty winds, heavy rainfall, regardless of development. They are going to issue, if something happens to change, could be a little bit sooner, but it looks like 9 p.m. will be the next issue of the special tropical outlook, like their next little update on it. Looking at the satellite imagery, here's your little blossomed area of thunderstorms right here. All right, off the coast of Florida. Okay, obviously I have the satellite loop a little bit sped up. I don't know why. Sorry about that. But most of the concentration of thunderstorms is off to the east. All right, there is. I mean, that's kind of like your area of spin, or like your central area low pressure. I wouldn't even call it spin really. But there is some storms that we've gotten several inches of rain. South Florida over the Bahamas, several inches of rain we've already had, and potentially an inch or two is still yet to come. All right, they have a little band of some colder cloud tops moving through South Carolina, North Carolina. Another wave is yet to come. This isn't necessarily the radar, kind of like the colder cloud tops. They could potentially produce those thunderstorms and the shower activity. Now, like Arthur, however, this thing is developing on the Gulf Stream, all right, which is right here. All right, you see there's a little piece of the Gulf Stream. It's not going to be tracking up the Gulf Stream. I think it's going to be going more like in this direction or possibly this direction, but it's still going to be moving over those warmer Gulf Stream waters that are certainly warmer than average. And because of that, this will be interacting possibly with some waters near or just above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it takes a little bit more of a western track, sort of hugs the coast, it will be weakened because of land interaction, and also the water is a little bit cooler. We're in like the upper 70s. If it does a little bit of an offshore track, we have no land interaction until later, and also the waters will be above 80 degrees. So depending on where it exactly tracks, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a westerly track, but still, I mean, near 80 degrees, that is still above average for this time of year. Before we get into the modeling, we got to do some, observations, some surface analysis, and kind of see how the factors are lining up. This is the tropical intensity index here, and let's see if we can we did get another latest update right here, and looks like, the storm is up here, All right, and it's going to be moving in this direction. So some unfavorable conditions, but behind the storm system, there are some favorable conditions for development setting up over possibly the northern Gulf, but especially near the Bahamas there. Right between the Bahamas and Cuba, we have a little orange and red regions, so possibly some favorable to highly favorable conditions for development. So that'll be something very interesting there, and certainly keep our eyes on. Let's look at the dry air here, and possibly see if there's another update. All right, I don't know if anything changed there really, but here's your storm system, and I don't see much dry air on the map. I mean, unless you guys see differently, I don't see too much dry air on the map, which is why I think dry air, I mean, possibly in the mid-levels, but I think this is the low to the mid-levels of the atmosphere, so maybe mid to upper levels. National Hurricane Center was picking up on some dry air, but, I mean, I really don't see any, because moisture is not going to be a problem with this system whatsoever. So because of that, because of this absence of dry air, it's going to help to enhance some of that moisture, because honestly, there's no dry air, the moisture will continue to be very strong. But the Atlantic as a whole, besides near Africa, there's really no dry air, besides like over here, which is pretty much usual for this time of year. But Caribbean, Western Atlantic there, even the Gulf of Mexico, not much dry air to contend with. So that's something we're going to keep our eyes on, probably because of that Nino 3-4 dropping to near La Nina levels, all right, in terms of our ENSO pattern. Shear, though, is a little bit of a problem. We have dropped 5 to 10 knots in the past 24 hours across this region right here, all right, but still wind shear is above 40 knots, so that upper level wind's a little bit of a problem. But behind the system, however, there's really not much shear over the Bahamas. All right, and if that area was like up here, if that no shear area was like right in this region here, then we would be talking about a different story. But sadly, there's just some upper level winds. And keep in mind, we got a big jet stream dipping down here too, which might help to pick up the system. Now, like Arthur, when a jet stream picks up a tropical system like that, it helps to, well, it does lose its tropical characteristics, but the wind strength actually does strengthen. Right, because the winds do get stronger when the jet stream picks up that storm, that tropical system or tropical disturbance. The winds will strengthen, but it kind of loses its tropical characteristics. Just becomes a normal low pressure system. Loses its deep tropical moisture, but still will have some moisture with it. That's what we're probably going to be contending with. But northern Gulf of Mexico doesn't have much shear really either. All right, so here's the GFS model, latest run here. They have the storm coming on shore with 1,009 millibars of pressure. We'll be looking at the surface winds as well. There it is, coming out the shore, South Carolina, possibly North Carolina. All right, and moving up, and like I said, the Mid-Atlantic, possibly, D.C., Richmond, Charleston, West Virginia, possibly. But it's going to be tracking near those mountains. So not only is it interacting with land, but when it moves over mountains like that, that just absolutely just smashes the chances down into the negatives. Because mountains are a tropical system's arch nemesis. All right, even though when you do have mountains near you, it does enhance the rainfall, but it also does reduce the system strength. But there will be some heavy rainfall over the mountains and even into the Mid-Atlantic here. Because of that, jet stream is going to enhance some moisture, some subtropical flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and even parts of the Atlantic. All right, so by Thursday morning, parts of the northern Mid-Atlantic, we're talking about, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all the way up north into New York eventually. All right, some spotty showers, maybe a little concentrated area line coming through Friday, but late weekend, we should be tapering off here as we head into Sunday. All right, so GFS, that was a GFS model. Let's take a look at the relative humidity values. All right, so some very strong relative humidity, pretty much near 100%. Now, I might be thinking, well, what is the relative humidity? I know humidity, but what's relative humidity? Relative humidity is basically, even if the temperature is 20 degrees and a dew point is 20, it's really dry. But technically, the relative humidity would be 100% because it's the closer the temperature and the dew point values, the closer they are together, the higher those relative humidity values are going to be. Because as the atmosphere gets warmer, you would expect it to have more moisture in it, like a more warmer and possibly a juicier atmosphere. That's what would you expect to happen. All right, so with that, we're going to have some high relative humidity values, meaning the temperature and the dew points are closer together. But this does also mean that the moisture values will be high. All right, and really this flow gets pumped up by the jet stream here, really deep subtropical flow coming in early weekend there for parts of the southeast. I got total precipitation. All right, let's go up through 5 days, just to take us through right through Sunday morning. Southeast, you could still pick up possibly, who knows, 2 to 4 inches. Even parts of the Tennessee Valley there as well over the next 5 days. Mostly from the tropical system, as I've looked. All right, so 2 to 4 inches and even 5 inches near Jacksonville, Florida, and just off the coast of North Carolina, 5 inches as well. So that's a lot of rainfall. All right, and keep in mind, some of these regions have had rainfall already. Like southern Florida could see another 1.5 inches. Well, we've already had several inches, so possibly a total of 8 inches plus of rainfall here. All right, let's look at the cyclonic vorticities. You can see there is a little area. It is GFS model is showing it's pretty circular. All right, the only thing helping this thing is the Gulf Stream because our upper level winds are a little bit unfavorable. We do have a little bit of dry air. I don't think it's too much, but nonetheless, this will bring, because of those above average sea surface temperatures, deep tropical moisture will be funneled through South Carolina, northeastern South Carolina, western North Carolina. Moving up to the north, some of its energy still some oranges and reds there. It's kind of off the map, but you can see it for Pennsylvania and West Virginia there. Possibly some of its energy through Thursday morning, and then eventually that all moves east into the mid-Atlantic as we head through the weekend in parts of the northern mid-Atlantic and the northeast. All right, now surface winds. All right, if we do start to see some of those, possibly a tropical storm force winds. All right, I mean, if it does happen, it's that little bright orange area there. If we zoom out to the western Atlantic loop here, it'll be easier to see because if you see one little green speckle, that means tropical storm force winds, or subtropical, obviously depending on the organization. And like I said, around that northeastern side, it's a dark blue, so we're literally like one color short. Like one more deeper shade, it would have been green, and we would have had a tropical storm. But looks like winds of about 30 to 33 miles an hour, and that's a tropical depression or subtropical depression could form. All right, but it looks like the GFS model isn't really taking it to a tropical storm. Not quite. It's just shy. Even though the upper winds are strong, okay, they're supposed to be strong this time of year. They're going to be starting to weaken, though, because that's what happens as we head through hurricane season. The shear anomalies in this region are about 10, 20, possibly 25 knots below average. So at least we know the shear is below what it should be. So that's a little bit of a sign. But you look at the upper level winds. I mean, they're still howling up there. I mean, we still got winds cutting across that storm nonetheless, 40, 50 knots plus, and that is very unfavorable for the storm. Now, like I said in my hurricane tracking videos, sometimes what happens is these storms can grow big, especially if it gets to like a stronger hurricane. It can like build a wall around itself to protect itself from the shear, from the dry air. That probably won't happen with this. However, possibly some weakening of the shear around the system, but overall, the shear will be pretty strong, even up through its landfall Wednesday morning. But we can never rule out the chance of development. Like I said, once that jet stream picks it up, that wind shear is really going to be increasing. That's going to tear the storm apart tropically, but we still will have some rain and wind, obviously, because it's still a tropical system. All right. This is the European model now, and let's see. Let's actually zoom out a little bit. Probably be better there. All right. Look at the European model, and they forecast a more westerly track. GFS had it staying over water a little bit longer, closer to a northeastern South Carolina, southwestern North Carolina landfall. European model has more of a Georgia landfall and a very westerly track. All right, so kind of going right up the coast almost. All right, and then they have like another little low pressure center right there. You can tell it has like a little dot in the middle of it, but they forecast more of a westerly track, meaning less time over water, more land interaction. And that's probably why the European isn't going to develop it as much, but still, some pretty intense showers and thunderstorms here. If we look at the relative humidity, all right, the relative humidity values are going to be near 100%, meaning some very high moisture values across much of the southeast. So rainfall will be coming, there'll be plenty of rainfall coming throughout the system here. Georgia, South Carolina, some very high relative humidity values, near 100% again, even through late Thursday, Friday, even through Saturday. And then eventually a front could possibly come through late weekend and probably dry things up a little bit. If we look at the 5-day rainfall, look at this. We're talking about over 8.5, 9 inches of rain for eastern Georgia there. Even the European model is calling for another 4 inches for northern Florida, possibly a couple inches plus for southern Florida again. But thankfully, the really deadly rainfall, 16, 18 inches, should be way offshore. But still, 9 inches for eastern Georgia there potentially. And even outside of that, a 4 inches plus region covers a good chunk of eastern central Georgia. So if you live there, be sure to keep your eyes out for some potential flash flooding, at least according to the European model there. But any model, going to be some intense precipitation, intense rainfall possibly. Like I said, there's your landfall on the Georgia-Florida border. Like I said before, the GFS had a more of a landfall there. So again, here's European, there's GFS. All right, so different track there. GFS track obviously has a little bit stronger of a storm, but European still does put some intense cyclonic vorticities, and there it is right there over Georgia. Some strong energy and potentially some intense precipitation. Then everything spirals up, moves up into mid-Atlantic, whatever the remnants of the storm may be. We look at the surface winds, not looking too much here. However, the European surprisingly does have a tropical storm, 35 knots right there. If you look really closely, it does have some, and those outer bands of 35 knot winds, which keep in mind you need 34 knots, which is 39 miles an hour for a tropical storm. So 35 knots, that is just on the line of tropical storm. So we'll see, could it be subtropical because of the wind shear cutting across it? That's what we thought for Arthur, and it ended up becoming tropical. All right, but still, 31 knots a weekend, a little bit before landfall. So European actually calls for a tropical storm. They have a little bit rapid intensification, but keep in mind they also do have a western track. So if European had the same intensity rate as it does now and have a little bit of eastern track, they'd make it an even stronger storm than it is now. But all right, we're going to be looking at the Canadian model shortly as well. All right, but here's the shear. All right, obviously you would use this more for severe weather. All right, we do still have some winds developing, but overall there will be some shear developing, possibly hindering development of the storm system. All right, but let's take a look at the past precipitation real quick before we get to the GEM model here. Just to show you that Miami's had 6 inches of rain just the past 72 hours. Georgia-Florida border, about 2 to 4 inches plus in the past 72 hours. Much of the southeast has had at least an inch. All right, several areas in the southeast, at least 1.5, possibly 2 inches in just the past 72 hours there. So we've had a lot of rainfall and possibly a lot more to come. All right, so let's look at that GEM model because they call for some pretty intense precipitation. Not too much of a strong storm system wind-wise by any means, but a low pressure center similar to a GFS landfall right on the border there between South Carolina and North Carolina, near Wilmington, North Carolina, and then moving up to the north through the northern Mid-Atlantic. So GEM and GFS, Canadian GFS, are overall pretty similar. Let's take a look at the precipitation totals with the Canadian model. They keep a lot of the heavier rain really offshore. All right, not much of, 2 to 4 inches is mainly offshore. Little stripe of 2 to 3, North Carolina, Virginia, up through the Appalachian Mountains, maybe some heavier rain for Alabama, and into northwestern Georgia. But overall, GEM does lighten up on the rainfall a little bit. Cyclonic vorticities here, and you can see it kind of looks exactly like a hurricane logo, doesn't it? You got your little funnel there, and it kind of makes that S shape, just like an animated hurricane logo would look like, so that's pretty interesting. All right, but there's a little area, not perfectly circular, it's not perfectly concentrated. I'd say it looks a little bit better here, but some of its energy will be transmitted up through the Appalachian Mountains into the northern Mid-Atlantic late this week and then into the early weekend. By late weekend, everything should be moving on out. Again, surface winds are probably going to zoom out, so it'll be easier to see. I'll zoom in if you guys really do need to see a little bit closer. All right, but let's see. I don't see any green, not even a dark shade of blue, just some medium shades of blue. So probably 25 to 30 mile per hour winds there with the Canadian model's forecast. Oops, sorry, that was an accent, guys. So let's just try to zoom out there. Wind shear anomalies, again, like the GFS, they are overall most of the blues, meaning below average shear, which is good for storm development. A little bit offshore. We do have a little bit of orange there, just off the coast of the South Carolina and Georgia, maybe some. So shear is just about average, a little bit below, a little bit above, right around the average. So because of that, instead of having a lot more blues like the GFS did, they're going a little bit more intense on the shear, and that would hinder the storm from developing. That's why they really didn't have it becoming a tropical storm either. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I am the Weather Dude, signing off until next time. Catch you guys next video.